Hey, it's me again. I was just scrolling through the forums because a couple of friends were debating whether to turn their living room into a home theater gaming hub or just stick with a regular TV. They're both tight on space, love binge-watching Netflix, and occasionally pull out the Xbox for a quick session of fast-paced shooters. I thought it might help to walk through the whole decision-making process before they drop a few $100 on a projector that could end up gathering dust. The link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest fear people have with this kind of gear is the white room problem. Projectors need a dark environment to look good, and many of us don't have a dedicated home theater. The ViewSonic X14K Pro tries to address that with 2500 ANSI lumens, which is a solid amount for a living room setup that still gets some ambient light from windows or LED ceiling fixtures. In practice, I set it up next to a standard sofa and drew the curtains just enough to dim the glare. The picture stayed bright enough to see deep blacks without the colors washing out, which is something you can't say for a lot of budget 1080p units that look like a washed-out TV under the same conditions. Now, the game-ready angle is a big selling point. ViewSonic built an ANSI native mode that runs at 1440p with a 120Hz refresh rate, and the panel actually supports a 240Hz refresh. That sounds like overkill, but when I tried a fast-paced first-person shooter, the motion looked incredibly smooth. The input lag is listed as 4.2 milliseconds, and on the couch I could feel the reaction time being practically instantaneous. No noticeable lag between pressing a button and my avatar shooting. If you're the kind of gamer who thrives on twitch reflexes, that low latency combined with the high refresh rate can be a real edge, especially compared to a typical 60Hz TV where motion blur can hide details you need to spot enemies. Color fidelity is another area where the X14K Pro tries to differentiate itself. It uses ViewSonic Cinema SuperColor tech, covering about 125% of the Rec. 709 color space, and it supports HDR and HLG. In my side-by-side test with a 4K OLED TV, the projector delivered punchier reds and deeper blues, but the overall brightness of HDR peaks was still a little shy of what a high-end TV can throw at you. That's not a deal-breaker for most streaming content, but if you plan to watch a lot of HDR movies that rely on peak brightness to create that wow effect, you'll notice the difference. Still, for standard 4K Netflix titles, the colors look vibrant enough that you won't feel cheated. One of those hidden trade-offs that people often overlook is the throw distance and screen size. The X14K Pro can project up to a 150-inch image, but to hit that size you need roughly a 2.5-meter distance from the wall. If your living room is smaller, you'll end up with a 100-inch screen at a closer distance, which is still impressive but may leave you feeling a bit cramped if you're used to a 65-inch TV. The good news is it has auto Keystone correction, so you don't have to worry about the image looking like a trapezoid when the projector isn't perfectly centered. I placed it on a low shelf and the picture stayed rectangular even though the angle was slightly off. Another practical concern is the lamp life. ViewSonic advertises 60,000 hours effectively forever for most households. The unit uses an LED light source, which means you won't have to replace a bulb every few years like older lamp-based projectors. That translates to lower ongoing costs and less hassle. As a side note, the fan can be a little audible when the projector is running at full brightness, but it never becomes a distraction, especially if you're listening to a movie soundtrack or game sound effects. Who should actually buy this? If you already own a decent sound system or plan to add a sound bar, and you have at least a moderate amount of space to set up a screen or a plain wall, the X14K Pro is a solid pick for a dual-purpose home theater and gaming rig. It shines for gamers who prioritize low latency and high refresh rates, and for binge watchers who want a massive screen without the bulk of a 4K TV. The built-in Google TV also means you won't need a separate streaming box. You can pull up Netflix, Disney+, or YouTube directly from the remote, which is a nice convenience factor. On the flip side, if you live in a bright apartment, have limited wall space, or you're not particularly interested in ultra-smooth motion for games, this projector might feel like a compromise. A bright room will dilute the image, and the need to manage ambient light can become a chore. Also, if you're looking for a device that can double as a TV for everyday news watching in a kitchen or bedroom, the bulkier setup and need for a larger throw distance make a conventional 4K TV a more practical solution. Another